Today we're going to look at G1 Dreadwind. I picked up this toy several years ago at I think the last auto assembly, and he's always been one of my favourites as a kid growing up, and I was really pleased to pick up this version, which is actually in fairly okay condition-ish. The joints are fairly tight, the sticker wear is minimal, but there is some fairly extreme damage to the old Powermaster mechanisms there. Now it's the basics on Powermasters. Powermasters are Powermasters are little men who become little engines that unlock the transformation of larger figures. Kids would inevitably lose the engines, break the figures while trying to force a transformation because kids are idiots. This particular version of Dreadwind has got some pretty bad damage to it from a previous owner. The wing mechanism has been pulled out from the body, as you can see here, and there's also some damage to the Powermaster mechanisms that lock the wings in place, where they've clearly been forced and bent inwards. There's some stress marks on the back of the jet as well, and the Powermaster mechanism slot is not very good either and doesn't spring back. The Powermaster engine is a little bit loose, but he's actually generally okay. So let's get this guy disassembled. To start with, we remove the hip panels to expose the screws that hold the legs on, and also the ratchets and the springs. Those are fairly easy to remove. Just get those stripped out there. And then it's just a simple matter of breaking down the legs and the feet into their different components. Then it's a matter of breaking into the body of the Powermaster, and then we can see exactly what's gone wrong with the mechanism here. So you can see that the wings have been bent out of shape slightly by the previous owner. A little bit of discoloration in there, and the sticker wear is evident here as well. And you can see that the main body of the Powermaster is actually not looking too bad. That's the spring that holds the mechanism in place. There's some rust on there, and it's looking a bit gunky. And this little black piece is integral to the mechanism. I'll show you that later. The arm disassembly is straightforward enough. Again, just removing the springs and the ratchets, and then it's just a matter of disassembling the arm itself into its little core components. A little bit tight here and there, and there's some gunk in the joints, but we'll get those cleaned out. And there you can see the cockpit's actually in pretty good condition, so I'm going to leave that as is. I'm just going to give that a bit of a clean over and a bit of a wipe through. That doesn't need disassembling. It actually looks to be pretty good. And I'm not going to try and remove that pin either. That's going to be too much of a headache. So now it's time to get rid of that stress mark. So I'm going to get some heat on that and see if that'll work.
Babe, can I borrow a hairdryer?
Well, that is a hairdryer, I suppose. Okay, here we go. Just going to heat this up slowly. Easy does it. Definitely getting a little bit on the old warm side here. I'm so bored. Oh, that's not good. So now it's time to try and fix up these damaged sections of the Powermaster mechanism. So I'm going to Dremel away these damaged bits where the mechanism's been forced and bent inwards. And once these are removed, the mechanism should move a little bit smoother, and hopefully it'll retain the Powermaster gimmick as well. There we go. Just going to sand that back a little bit. Ow! So now it's time to give the old toy a bit of a clean. So I'm just going to use some standard antibacterial wipes. Just going to give this guy a big once over. There we go. Just cleaning all the little bits, getting all the gunk out of there. Removing some bits of rust with the wipe as well. Not much rust from the springs, but there's a little bit. And just going through and cleaning it off and making everything a bit cleaner. Luckily there's not too much to do in the way of sticker removal here. The previous owner had only put stickers on the wings, and there were no stickers on the arms, legs, or the cockpit, anything like that. So that's going to make the next section a little bit easier. And I'm hoping that by cleaning out everything in the mechanism, it'll make everything move a little bit smoother. And I'm just using a screwdriver there to scrape off some of the more gnarly bits on the Powermaster engine. So that's just about done for the cleaning side of things, and now it's time to get some of those stickers taken off. One of my Twitter followers, ITFDB, suggested using lighter fluid to remove the stickers. He didn't specify how much to use, so I figure this should be an adequate amount. Just going to soak these in here. Oh, Jesus Christ! Okay, whoa, 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 whoa. Right, okay, let's try that again with a slightly more sensible amount of lighter fluid. Just going to dab this on the edges here, let that soak in, and that should happily reduce the residue on the stickers and allow for some easy removal. Just going to let that soak in there, and that should be just... Oh, hey, whoa, oh God, no, no, oh Okay, let's try that again. Just going to peel these off there, not going to be too precious about it, as I've got some new stickers to put on later. Just going to use a little bit more lighter fluid to remove the last part of the residue. And you'll start to see, as these come off, clean away the residue, you can see some of the discoloration of the toy. So there's some of the original colour of the wings there. So now it's just a matter of putting this guy back together. So I'm going to start with the legs, reassembling the components there. I'm going to put that screw in place ready for use on the hips later. Just going to cover it up with this original panel as well. Fairly straightforward. And then after this it'll just be a matter of putting the arms back together as well. These go together a lot easier after the cleaning, and there's no longer a crazy stiffness around the elbows now that that gunk's been removed. It's all a lot more smooth and looking good. Same for the left arm, there we go, that's all back in place as well. So, how does Dreadwind's Powermaster mechanism actually work? So, this is the deal. When you've got high test and the engine form there, he slots into that little area. This black bit here with a notch on it slides into the main part of the body and is slightly raised. Because it's slightly raised, when the wings are in place, that little notch latches the wings together there so that you can't actually move them when the engine is not in place. The engine simply pushes down that black tab. That black tab then unlocks the wing mechanism, and it also unlocks part of the back of the jet as well. So without the engine in place, it doesn't move, but with the engine in place, it slides off fairly straightforward. And if you're a kid and you lose the engine, all you have to do is simply push down the Powermaster slot and make sure that that black section is depressed, and then you can still transform the toy without the engine. So putting that back together there, we've got the spring in place, the back of the jet's been placed there as well, and it's a little tricky to get it in with the spring, but see it works fine, and then you can see the locking mechanism in place for the back of the jet as well. So now that the mechanism's been repaired and in place there, I can see that that's now working. And the wing, the right wing is actually now still back inside the main part of the body. Just going to replace the old head on there. Get the main front of the body in place. And as is usually the way with most jet transformers, without the arms and the legs, he's a fairly serviceable jet mode. But speaking of arms and legs, we do need to put them back on, so I'm just going to reassemble the ratchets in the arm and then reattach the arm back to the wing mechanism. Dreadwind's arms are exactly the same on both sides with the exception of the fists, so they're actually quite interchangeable, which is handy, and I guess it saves costs on Hasbro's part. The legs, the lower legs, again, they're fairly interchangeable for the most part. The tops of the hips aren't though, so you need to make sure you've got those correct. I've put the ratchets and the springs back in place on the hips, and then it's just a matter of getting those screwed back in. And again, just making sure that you've got the legs in the right places to allow them to rotate back up into the body correctly. So there we go, that's all nice and in place. So here's the restore the jet before I do the stickers. You can see that the wings are now in place properly and they won't budge when I try to transform them. But I can put the little engine back into the slot, which now is much smoother and springs back nicely. And once that's in place, the wings will then slide back. There we go. And even with the Dremeled out pieces, the Powermaster mechanism still functions correctly, which is great. So that means that the toy is now working again the way it should. And then to complete the robot mode, you just push all the wings back up into place, and there we are. Got to give them his little guns. Boom, boom, boom. And last but not least, I've got some repro labels here from Toy Hacks. Just going to put these in place. And these should really kind of set the toy off. Stickers do cover some of the molded details on the wings, unfortunately, so I do tend to try and push the stickers into those details so they're not completely hidden. And the original owner, of course, never applied the bulk of the stickers to this toy, so I'm just going to go ahead and add all the ones that were never put on in the first place. So you've got the hip panel bits, there's bits on the shins and bits on the lower part of the legs, and there's also the Decepticon logo on the chest and on the nose of the cockpit as well. So these stickers are going on quite nicely. Just going to push those into place there. Again, I'm never totally sure I'm doing this exactly right, but they're close enough for me. And here we have the finished article, fully cleaned, fully tightened up, restored. The Powermaster mechanism is working again, fully restickered, and the toy's looking a lot better than it has done for the last 30 years or so. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye! Oh, for